Welcome to the Garden Show. I'm Peggy Ballister-Howells, and we are here doing our second show. And last week, we kind of called it a dress rehearsal. It was a limited viewing. We had a lot of quirks to work out, and we still have some. So I'm still kind of struggling with my image in the screen. We know what we need to do. We have to get a green screen, and that will apparently keep me in the picture all the time without weirdness behind me. So we've learned that, but it hasn't arrived yet. So we had some very positive comments about things we could do with the lighting, that the glare on my glasses was distracting, and we've adjusted the lighting. We also ordered some blackout Roman shades to put on the curtains behind me, and they arrived in the wrong size. So, we have to send them back. So that's a bit of a struggle. So we're learning and we're having fun. So if you want to call, the number is on the bottom of the screen. And if you're listening and not looking at the screen, the number is 888-399 Peggy, Pegi, which happens to be 7344. So that's 888-399-7344. And as I had said last week, I think I said, oh, there he is. He just popped up his head. This is Kusa Dogwood. He is, he's 8 years old. He's part Chihuahua, part Terrier. And I think he might be part Chinese crested hairless. What do you think? He's got gigantic ears. So he hangs out with me in the garden. He's really good with the chickens. He's a lot of fun. And I thought you would like to meet him. Again, all the critters have plant names since, we're a horticultural family. So, and he's really little, and he came into the family when we had 3 big dogs. So he needed kind of a tough name. So I thought Kusa Dogwood would do it. And when I'm mad at him, he's Mr. Dogwood, of course. So we're going to put him down. And I also had said that we're going to try to start each show with a tool. For one thing, I often talk about tools, and now you can see them, which is very helpful. Of course, this whole weirdness with the light as my arms disappear is a little problematic, but we will solve that problem in the not too distant future. And I'm going to try very hard to show you this week's tool right in the little sweet spot. Okay, so you can see the handle. And now you can see the blade. And this is a root slayer shovel. So if we could go to the slides for the root slayer, and I can show you a little bit more. This is an amazing tool, and it's used for digging in tough spots, and especially here at Tiny Farm, where we took down and dug out many overgrown trees and shrubs and so many roots in the ground. And it really is extremely helpful. And so you can see that took one shove of my foot to get that all the way in the ground like that, which I think is pretty impressive. Not being particularly strong. I'm not a weakling, but not particularly strong. I thought that was and that's very near the base of a maple tree, which is famous for having lots of roots. So this is some of them that you can see. Gempler's has one, and my picture is covering the price, but I think it's about $40. And then there's one right next to it called, there it is. Can we see that? And then the Radius Root Slayer Extra Long. It's misleading. I wish that my tool had a longer handle. It would give me more leverage, and that would be great, but it doesn't. This one has a longer handle, but I will get to the next slide and explain to you why maybe that's not such a great thing. Back up a little, please. That little hand trowel I've never purchased, I've never used, but I found it while doing the research to put all these pictures together. And maybe it'll be on my Christmas list because it looks very, very intriguing. Again, those little blades on the side, those are little sharp points, really go a long way when you're trying to dig. Okay, so on the next slide, you can see some comparison. There are other manufacturers of similar type things. The Root Assassin, I think the little one in that picture is like really little, like more like a handheld kind of thing. Maybe I couldn't really get any more information. Um, they got good reviews. I've never tried them. And the picture on the right, you can see 3 different kinds of shovels. The one on the far right has a very similar blade, but bigger. And it does have a bigger D handle, which I think could be useful. The one on the left is great for digging, but not for the same reason. So in the next picture, you can see the comparison of the blades. And the one on the left does not have the jagged edges there for really cutting the roots, but it's very good. The point and the shape, it's very good for digging in clay soil, and it really helps get through, but not so good for roots. The one on the right is that off-brand one that we have, and you can see that the blade itself is much bigger. And I don't think that's an advantage, especially for gardeners like me and many of our listeners, where we have so many things in the ground already. The smaller blade does less damage when you're digging, but in addition, it's easier for people who have less strength. Next. Now, this is a comparison. These are all made by the same manufacturer, and they have those round circle handles. I'm not so sure about them. And you can see that the only one that has the small blade is the one on the right, and that's the one that I have, that I love. Again, if they made the small blade with a longer handle, I would give it an extra star, but in the meantime, I use it for so many things. And this is it. It's, if you're searching for it, and I've seen it for various prices. A.M. Leonard carries it also, and they're the one that carries the one with the longer handle. Gempler's carries them, but doesn't carry the one with the longer handle. So if you're searching for it, this is the full name: Radius Garden Root Slayer Nomad. And I don't know why they came up with these names, but that's the one. I use it all the time. I totally rely on it. The concave blade at the tip catches the roots and really helps cut them. And I think it's a great tool. So there you go. Do we have any callers yet? No. So let me give the number again. The number here is 888-399-7344. So one of the big projects we were working on this week, a bit of a nightmare project. Does anyone remember that in the spring there was a tornado that touched down in central Jersey? I happened to be in the greenhouse with Jordan that day, and the entire roof on the greenhouse lifted up about that much. I could see the whole roof like blowing away. I thought, oh my, it's going to disappear. It didn't. It came back down, but I immediately called the wonderful guys who built my greenhouse for me and asked them to come and take a look. And as it turns out, the screws that were used to hold the roof panels in place were only this big, and they went through the roof panels and into the wood. So when the wind was really strong, it caught them and yanked them right out. So they came over the last few days and put in new screws and secured it back down, which is great. But I had to move all the plants out of the greenhouse. So that was a huge project. And next week, I'll show you some pictures, because we scrubbed everything. We revarithaned some of the wood on the inside. Big, giant mess. But it's going to be so clean. And we got rid of a bunch of plants. So that was a really time-consuming project for this week. All right, well, we're going to go to the phones. I don't have a name, but let's go to the phones and see who we've got. You're on the air. This is Peggy. Who am I talking to?
Hi.
Hi.
This is Mary from Warren.
Mary from Warren. How are you?
I'm really good.
Glad to hear that. What can I do for you today?
Well, there's two things. First, I want to tell you that I planted that lemon squash that you talked about.
Yes.
And we had it last night in a casserole with zucchini and cheese, and it was delicious. Absolutely delicious.
Yeah,
and it had a really nice texture to it.
I agree. I totally agree. When I made it, I used I like fried it with some breadcrumbs, and I thought the texture was the best. I really loved the texture of it, so I would agree. I'm right there with you, and I like them
Yeah.
because they're not too big. I mean, they stay a nice size,
Hmm.
which I think is another advantage. One zucchini probably, is not too much, but I like the fact that they stay nice and small, and they're so prolific that if you want more, you pick more. But if you don't, if you just want a little bit, you can just have a little bit. So I really like that aspect of it too. So I'm glad that
Yeah.
worked for you. That makes
Yeah.
me happy.
So I'm loving that. And my other issue is actually a problem with the garden bed next to mine in the garden. She has blueberry plants. They were new this year that she put in. She had some in the garden, and she put in some new soil and got 2 new plants. And the leaves are all starting to turn brown. On one of the plants, it's like the top 6 inches or so is all brown. And then on the other one, it seems like where the branches come from the trunk, they're turning brown from the bottom up. They're gradually, because even the leaves toward the top, just the very little edges of them are brown, but it looks like the whole thing is going to go brown. And I don't know if you have any thoughts about what it might be, what to do.
But
She said when she was pulling.
it was newly planted this year, right?
Newly planted this year, yeah.
And
But planted in the spring.
Okay, in the spring. And this is at like a public garden?
Yeah, it's at the community
At the
garden.
community
Yeah.
garden. Okay. Do you have good access to water there, or do you have to bring your own?
No, we have water.
Okay.
We have water.
Do you know how well she's been watering it?
She's typically pretty good about it, and we have had a fair amount of rain recently.
We have recently, but not early on. The roots could have had some damage to them early on. It was very hot and the ground was very dry. When you look at the foliage, do you see any spots?
No. Mm-mm.
No spots. Okay.
Didn't see spots.
Did
no.
you see any webbing?
She did say when she did see some spider webs and stuff as she was pulling out the dead stuff, cutting it and pulling it off.
Because I have observed some on one of my plants that there was webbing and the whole branches were dying. And I did a little pruning and I did a little hosing and I did a little soap and water and got rid of them. But I was losing branches here and there on just one of my like 35 bushes. So I would really look closer and see if there's something else on there and see if, because that would cause it to die one branch at a time. And that's not so likely if it's a drought related situation. It wouldn't necessarily die one branch at a time because it would affect the whole plant if it was drought related. And if it's dying one at a time, I'm thinking that it's probably something else. So I would look again to see if there's anything else on there that if it's making webs, I'm beginning to think there's a definite connection with that. So in addition to that,
okay.
I would check the base and see if there's any damage at the base in any way, any kind of fungus growing or mold or any kind of oozing or anything that could affect one branch versus another. Because it doesn't make a lot of sense that it's dying like that from drought.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's something else, a disease or insect. And as I had said, this is good. You gave me an opportunity to say that if you can take pictures, you can send me the pictures during the week, and then I can make a little file folder. Like I have all these little file folders in front of me about the tool I just talked about the hardy kiwis. I can make a file folder about this problem. And then when you call me, we can bring the pictures up on the screen and everybody can see what we're talking about. Isn't that cool?
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you can send me the pictures, I can consolidate them into a little slideshow. Take as many as you can, and then I can sort through them and figure out which ones are best, and then we can put it on the air and we can talk about it live. Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So we should do that. But I would definitely look closer, and I would, if all else fails, take some dish detergent out there, squirt it on the plant, take a hose, lather it up, wash it all away, but give it a really good bath just in case there's some very small critters on there that are doing the damage.
They're doing it. Okay.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Okay, very good.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, you have a wonderful.
I told her. I said, Peggy will have ideas. That's what I told her.
Well, there you go. I've definitely got, I never short on ideas, not always 100% sure of answers, but I've always got ideas. All right. You have a great day, Mary. Thanks for calling in.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Okay. So who do we have next? Oh, it's Danny from Metuchen. Hey, Danny girl. You with us?
Hello.
Hey, there you are. How you doing today?
How are you?
Well, I'm good. We're having technical difficulties again, but we're working them out. Seems like, I don't know, what did you do? You did something different? You did something different. We were trying to make the background not be so conflicted, and he was running around for a minute, and it looks a little better. So I guess we have, see, when I move, like weird stuff happens. So, but that'll be fixed with the green screen next week. So we're making progress, but it looks better now than it did at the beginning of the show. So we're definitely making progress. So I'm glad you called, because I've been thinking one of the other things we should do on occasion is feature one of the local nurseries. What do you think?
Okay.
And take pictures.
Sure.
You know, we could go and take pictures. So instead of just saying, I love to go to this place, we can show pictures that indicate why I love to go to this place. And one of the first places I was thinking of was, come on.
Edison Flower Shop.
Yes. Yes. That's a really cool place. And I have discovered over the years, and I'm sure other people have too, that the smaller family operated garden centers tend to have more unusual things because it's not mass ordered. Like at the big box stores, they order everything in mass. And the smaller places often grow their own and propagate their own and have unusual things. And I love going to those kinds of places. So you and I have to make plans to go there, take a bunch of pictures so that that can be one of the nurseries that we feature. What do you think?
Sure.
And then
I would definitely
go to for that Chinese food place that you took me to with the little soup things, the little soup.
Sure.
Dumplings.
There are many more different interesting places I discovered since we went to that one place. So, you know.
Okay, so
we can go many times.
So the what's the name of that place? The Edison Garden?
I think the Edison Plants and Flower Shop.
Okay, well, we definitely need to go there because they have, it's small, relatively speaking, but it's bigger than it looks from the road for sure. And
Right.
But they have really interesting things. Always have. They are the ones with the persimmon trees, and they had a huge selection of fall blooming camellias, and their succulent collection inside the greenhouse was spectacular. So we need to go. So, and I've got if other people have nurseries that they would like to see or recommend, we definitely want to go to Mike's, and we don't want to go to Madden's. That's two others, and maybe Baumley. That's also on 27 down near Princeton. They feature. They have some amazing. It's more like going to a display garden. Their stuff is so beautiful, very expensive, but very, very beautiful. But they have the most amazing collection of red buds. It's like ones that you've never seen anyplace. So I think that would be fun. So you and I have to do that. Okay.
Okay. So the official name is called Edison Plant and Flowers.
Okay. Edison Plant and Flower. So it's right on Route 27 next to the Sam Ash Music Store. And it looks like nothing from the road, but it expands in the back. So that
Right.
was a big surprise. So we'll definitely, but if anybody happens to see it between now and when we get up there, definitely worth a stop. So, all right. So do you have a question for me?
Yes. I had planted cardinal flowers last year,
Yes.
and it came back and it's beautiful. But also, I had planted a bunch of cosmos last year in my brand new garden bed.
Right.
And this year, one of them volunteered in between my cardinal flowers.
Okay.
So my question is, what should I do? Should I transplant the cosmos, or just pretend that next year it's a self-sold? I didn't plant them right next to it.
Right.
And so should I just ignore it once the season is over? Hopefully next year won't pop up.
Well, I wouldn't do
what
anything.
should I do about it?
I wouldn't do anything now, because unless you just
Okay.
want to cut it out if it's annoying you. But I wouldn't do much because you don't want to transplant it. It's the middle of August already, and it would really set it back. And next year, you just need to now that you know that they're self-sowing and they're going to come back, just keep an eye out for the seedlings, and you'll be able to recognize
and then move them.
And move them
So
when they're
move them
little.
right away?
Yes.
Right.
And that'll solve that problem. And then you can put them where you want them. I have the exact same situation with Cleome that spider flower, that they're in my blueberry bed. And it's a perfect arrangement because the blueberries bloom in the spring, get those pretty little white flowers. And then in the summer, they have the blueberries and it's about 5 weeks that we're harvesting blueberries like lunatics. And then they're done. And after that is when the Cleome start to bloom. And they bloom at the same time as the giant hibiscus, which you can see in the background behind me, but there's also more in the blueberry bed. And that camouflages the blueberry bushes. It doesn't hide them, but they're not very interesting once they finish producing blueberries. They're not that interesting. They're just little green bushes. They get really interesting again in the fall because they turn red. But the Cleomes are perfect because I don't have to go in there and deadhead, and they self-sow. So, but I do have to move some of them around. If they're coming up right through the blueberry bushes, that's not good. So then I can move them around, and it works. It's a pretty good system, and they're very recognizable. And you will, once you get used to it, the seedlings from anything that's self-sow, because they'll be coming up in large number, you'll be able to easily recognize them, move them around, thin them if they're coming up too much in one spot, and it'll work really well for you.
Okay, talk about Cleomes. I had a bed. Somebody gave me a bunch, and they all took, and they went wild. And this year, nothing came up, not one single plant. So I was very unhappy. So I finally decided, when I had a minute, I actually started a bunch of seedlings. Now they're about an inch tall. So what would you recommend? Should I plant them, or should I keep them in my house over the winter and plant them outside next year? Well,
okay, I wouldn't do that because they're not going to do well in your house. They need blazing sun all day. And even under ideal conditions in the wintertime, our days are just too short. I don't think that they would do great. Maybe you could keep them alive, but the only annual plants that really do well in the wintertime in New Jersey are the ones that like shade outside. So you can do that with your begonias and your impatiens and your coleus. You can bring them in, and they will do okay. There's the streptocarpus. That's another one. You know, that one with the fuzzy leaves and the little tiny flowers. My screen just went blank. Tommy, yeah. So we're back. So I don't think that your Cleome seedlings are worth trying to go through all that effort to keep them going over the winter. You may want to try planting them out, and maybe you'll get some late season flowers, because the truth is that at the very end of the season, they're so long and have so many of those long, skinny, spidery seed pods that they get a little bit weird. So maybe it's a little late. I don't think you got a good shot, but you've got a better shot at planting them outside than you do trying to keep them inside.
Okay, I'm just like I say, nothing to lose. I was
Right.
just very annoyed, and I didn't have time early on, and I finally said, I'm just going to start some seed and see what happens. It actually took a long time for it to germinate in this house, in the sunroom. I babied them. It took like almost 3 weeks before they start popping out.
Well, that's partly why it works so well on the blueberry bed. They germinate very
Right.
late. They germinate very late and
Right.
and don't compete with what you're doing out there with the blueberries
Right.
when you're focusing on the blueberries, and that works out really well. But they do take a long time to germinate, and they do germinate a little bit later. So all of that's true. So all of that's consistent with
Okay.
with what you're experiencing. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So we will make plans to visit the Edison Plant and Flower Shop.
Yes, soon.
And,
Yeah, I would definitely like to
okay.
do that soon. All right.
Okay.
All right. You have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Danny. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye now. Do we have more
Bye-bye.
calls? Okay. Good morning. It's John from Milltown. How you doing, John? John?
There's been somebody.
There you
Hello?
are, John. How you doing?
Yeah, no, it's Joan.
Oh, it's Joan. Sorry. All right. I'm going to
Yeah,
explain.
Joan.
This gives me another opportunity to explain some of the craziness that we're
Oh.
experiencing here. You talk into
Okay.
a robot, and the robot
Oh.
records what you say. And
Okay.
have you ever tried to send a text message, but you talk into the phone,
Yeah.
and it's like when we were kids and we would play that telephone game where you would whisper from one person to another person. And by the time it actually got
Yes.
to the person at the end, it didn't sound anything like what you started with. It's a little
Okay.
bit.
Absolutely.
So
Mhm.
the robot is sort of doing that. And last week, my dear friend Uncle Art called, and it said Walt. I was so confused. I was so
Oh.
confused. So it said John when you said your name. The robot was obviously sleeping at least halfway. So
Oh.
okay, so that
Yeah.
explains. So other people can now know that, and that we're working on fine tuning all of this stuff, and we're getting a little bit
Okay.
better. But so thank you for the opportunity
I'm-
to explain.
I'm just happy that you're back. Number one.
Well, me too.
So glad. Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm thinking 2 plants. One are my daylilies. I would like to split them and move them someplace else. When is the best time to do that? I'm thinking this spring. I shouldn't think about it now, but
Okay.
what do you say?
There's a couple caveats on that one. Daylilies, as a
Okay.
general rule, can be divided and moved almost any time they're not blooming. I would say
Okay.
because they're so tough, but in really hot weather, I would say maybe not, because you'd really have to fuss with them and keep them well watered. And when the ground's frozen, of course, you don't want to do it then. But they're very
Right.
flexible. They're very, very flexible and very tolerant.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
again, here's the caveat.
Okay.
One of the problems is, well, it's not even a problem, but you have ever blooming daylilies, and you have spring or one time blooming. They can be early, mid, or late season. And then you have the
Right.
ones, and this is the trickiest part, the ones that are re-blooming, not continually blooming, but they'll bloom. They'll have a big burst of bloom at some time in the summer, early, mid, or late season in the summer. And then they
Right.
will bloom again in
Uh-huh.
October, late September or October. And so
Oh.
if you have those, you need to know what kind you have in order to make the right decision
Okay.
as to when you can. If you have the ones that are re-blooming in September or October, which I love them to give you a late season burst of color, you
Right.
definitely don't want to be
Uh-huh.
moving those now or even in early
Okay.
September. But all of the other ones you can pretty much move in early September, and they're tough enough that you can
Okay.
do that. And it's nice because
Okay.
you can also do it in the spring. But in my opinion, anything that you can get done in the fall when there's not as much to do, to take off the
Right.
pressure of all the things that you do have to do in the spring,
Okay.
you could get that
Okay.
that particular job taken care of in the fall.
Okay. All right. And then my second question is also about splitting our hostas. This is for my daughter who lives in Maryland. So their season is a little bit ahead of us, as far as warm weather. but she got these 3 little hosta plants that's now huge, and she would like to split them and move them. Can she do that now or wait till the spring? But then you have to wait till they come all the way up.
Well, hostas are another. I used to say I hated hostas. I did.
Oh, okay.
Because and I'll give you my reasons why. For one, they really draw slugs. Slugs love them, and slugs are totally bizarre animals. We can talk about that another day, but they are totally bizarre and gross. So so that's one problem, is that they draw slugs. Another problem is unless they're in deep shade, by the end of the season, they often look like they've been cooked in a frying pan. And I find that very unattractive. They really don't do well. That's the second reason I don't like them. The third reason I don't like them is that they spread like crazy. They can be very aggressive when they spread. And if you haven't ever tried to dig them out, it's an experience. You need that tool that I showed you at the beginning of the show.
I was wondering, yes.
They are very, very difficult to dig out and move. And so I suggest that your daughter give serious thought to how many she wants, if she really wants the aggressiveness of the ones she already has to spread throughout her yard. That could be, she just needs to make sure that's what she wants, because a yard full of hostas, if it makes you happy, is a lot of happiness. If a yard full of hostas begins to weigh on you, it's a lot of weight. So she needs to make that decision.
But could they be, if she decides she loves them and wants to split them and move, relocate some of them, could she do that now?
I would say now is a little premature, only because it's still really hot. And as another general rule, they say fall is for planting. There's not necessarily transplanting. But But we were talking about daylilies a bit ago, and you can do them in the fall because they're so tough, and you could do hostas in the fall because they're so tough. But it's not. These are more exceptions to the rule than the rule. So I just want to make that clear that yes, you could do the hostas in September because they're tough as nails. And again, it's a project you could get out of the way at this time of year rather than in the spring. But it's not for everything, but it is for those 2 plants.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I'll pass that information along to Marilyn.
Okay, that's great. And if you could share the site with anybody who might be interested, we're trying to get a broader base of viewers. So I would appreciate that.
Oh, okay. I'll do that. That's a good idea.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
All
right.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
So we have more callers. Who's next?
Kim from Ocean Grove, new caller.
Oh, yay. Kim from Ocean Grove. Good morning, Kim. I hope you're on the air with us. Are you there?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I think I'm really good.
Pardon me?
I said, I think I'm really good.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm from Ocean Grove, but I'm in Florida right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm with my cousin, and my Uncle Nick used to work with with Matt.
Oh, right. How are you? Yes.
And then my sister is Valerie, so.
So we're almost sort of distantly, weirdly fun related, right? Sort of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So anyway, my question is, last year actually, I had a gardenia tree, and the leaves became very yellow, and it didn't produce any gardenias, and I didn't do well. It was on my deck in full sun. I don't know if that had to do with it.
Okay, let me start out with saying that gardenias are just a little bit nightmarish. They are so finicky. And the number of people that are successful with gardenias is just a very small percentage compared to the number of people that really struggle with them. So it's not necessarily you. It's a very difficult plant. So keep that in mind. They don't necessarily need blazing hot sun all day, but they do need some sun, some good sun. But the thing that's most important, and one of the problems with the way you handle them, is they need consistency. So moving something out onto the deck and then moving it in at another time of year would send it into a tailspin for sure. So, and when you put it out on the deck, if it was in sun all day, it would have needed to go out in the sun gradually, not like just buy it and stick it in a sunny location. Because if you buy it from a store or a shop, and then it's not in the sun, and then you bring it home and you put it in the sun right away, you need to kind of bring it home and put it under a shady tree and then move it out a little bit more and then eventually move it into the sunny location. But then when you go to move it in the fall, you have to do the reverse so that it gradually gets used to. And even if you do all that, sometimes it just,
They don't.
yeah, they're just really, really finicky plants. They're gorgeous and they smell amazing, but they are, at the very least, an enormous challenge. When you're successful, you feel great, but I don't need plants making me feel like a failure. It's just, it's just, there are so many other things that I can grow that make my heart sing. And so I don't tackle gardenias. If somebody gave me one as a gift, I would definitely do my best to keep it going. But there's so many other things that produce outrageous flowers that I get really excited about that don't also simultaneously torture me. So you might give some thought.
So there's another question. I don't know the name of the flower, but it looks like a trumpet vine, but it's kind of cascading. I have it in my flower pot. It's red. I know it comes in white and red, but I don't know what the name of it is.
A dipladenia.
I'm having the same problem.
Okay.
I'm having this.
It's sort of vine-like, but not super viney. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. My guess is it's a dipladenia, and they're not as finicky as gardenias, but they can be a little annoying. But generally speaking, they will produce flowers all summer. So I would say the problem with that could be either overwatering or underwatering. So
that's what I figured.
Yeah, and maybe keep an eye on it. Lift up the pot, feel how heavy it is, water it thoroughly, feel how heavy it is, and then keep an eye on it because you don't want it to get overly dry because it would definitely start to drop everything if it was overly dry.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your insight. I will definitely not get another gardenia bush, and I'll keep my eye on it.
Yes.
They do beautifully in Florida, though. The gardenias, they're all over the place.
Yeah, but then, yes, I'm sure. And they're outside and they're in an environment and there's no change. They don't get moved around because they're in the ground. Right. So the environmental conditions stay consistent, which is one of the things I said. They need consistent environmental conditions, which is so difficult to do in a container in New Jersey because we don't have enough light in the winter. So, and it's too cold. So you can't leave them outside and there's not enough light inside. And so basically they have little plant nervous breakdowns, which, feels like it's our nervous breakdown.
We don't need that.
Right. We don't need that. We don't need that. There's some really wonderful plants that bloom inside that are spectacular that, better to focus on some of those.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Nice to talk to you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for calling, and maybe I'll see you in Ocean Grove.
Yeah, you'll probably see me.
Okay, all right. Thanks for calling. Bye-bye now.
All right. Bye.
Okay, we have another caller, and struggling a bit with all of this technology here, but I think we're getting through it. I have all these slideshows prepared that I can share with you, but we're getting so many callers that we're not going to get to them. So now we're going to chat with my dear friend, Anne-Marie. Good morning, Anne-Marie.
Good morning. I'm listening here and I'm laughing because I think Joan from Milltown is my friend from when we were kids.
Oh, great.
And my thing for hosta is let it die back in the spring when it comes up. When it's up as big as your pinky, get your most wicked spade shovel out. Jump on that and you can cut the root because the root is like a core of a cabbage. It's hard as anything. I have an old kitchen knife I use sometimes on it. and then I just put these little babies wherever I want them. So that's my message for Joan.
Okay, well,
My message for you, my friend, is my Black Beauty tomato, which went from purple to black on the top half, is now trying to be pink on the bottom half.
oh yeah,
I'm
that's
so excited.
exciting. So yes, when it turns red, then you can harvest it. And somewhere in all of these slideshows that I have a picture of the, I don't know if we'll get to it, but maybe, of the mushroom basket sliced. So it looks like two big flowers on the plate. They're really quite spectacular, actually. So maybe we will get to that. So anything else? How's Uncle Art?
Uncle Art's good. We'll talk to you about him later. Not on the YouTube.
Okay.
But I want to say to Mary from Warren, I believe that the perennial hibiscus I brought home was from her, and if it's from her or from anybody else that's listening, it bloomed. I had about 8 flowers. They were lovely, white with little red edging, or middle rather, and I enjoyed them. But now some just died off and they're just a brown nothing, but 2 have very large pods. Is that making a seed?
Yes. Yeah, the seed.
Oh, I'm so excited.
It's kind of cool. Remember, hibiscus, all hibiscus have very interesting pods. There's the okra is a hibiscus pod. The roselle, which you can make a beverage out of, is a hibiscus pod. The hibiscus that you're looking at makes that pod with the papery green outside, and then inside is a little roundish kind of wrinkly, looks almost like a walnut kind of thing that'll grow and mature into a seed pod. But so is cotton, a seed pod from a hibiscus plant, and that opens the same way with the papery on the outside and then the little cotton balls on the inside. So yes, they're all fun, they're all interesting, they're very diverse, and yet there's a continuity among them all because they have a similar look. Yes, you can save them, you can save the seeds, and very often they will either resprout on their own, or you can save the seeds and start them. So either way, you can do that.
Good. Okay. And I had to laugh about the dear lady that calls about her gardenia, because you remember a couple of years ago I was gifted one which went from I'm a healthy plant to I don't feel good to I'm terrible. I'm now a bundle of sticks with 6 leaves. I gave it to my daughter who moved to Florida, and that's the answer. Put it on your lanai in Florida. It now is a bushy green plant with flowers.
Yep. There you go. Works every time. Yeah.
There you go. That's the answer. But she's already in Florida. She should take it to her cousin.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea because they are cranky plants. They are definitely cranky plants. So. All right, Anne Marie, sending a hug. I will talk to you soon. We have more callers. This is great.
Go ahead. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye. All right, so let me give the number for those who are listening. It's 888-399-7344. That's 888-399-PEGI. Now we're going to talk to my other good friend, Bob from Piscataway. Hey, Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Peggy. How are you?
We're good. We're still struggling a bit here, but having fun and making it work. So, well, mostly work.
It is working.
Yes,
it's working, and yeah, you've motivated me to get one of those root cutter shovels. We really should have one around here, and seeing, showing you, watching you display it and how handy it can be. Yeah, we're going to definitely get one of those. And
I think the smaller ones have, huge advantage over the bigger ones. If you have a really tough spot, working a smaller area is always easier than trying to use a bigger shovel. So if you're really struggling, smaller is better. And I wish,
and you can always cut a bigger.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
No, and you can always cut a bigger area with a smaller shovel. So.
Yes, that's correct. But
yeah, sorry to break in like that.
No problem. But if you have a really big shovel and they're just not, you're stronger than me, and I have my husband when I get so frustrated that I can't do something by myself, which I absolutely hate, of course. Having a bigger shovel, has some advantages if you're strong enough, but if you're not, it's kind of worthless because then you can't do anything. So I'm all in favor of smaller is better. And it's easier on your back too. It's not as hard. I can use a small shovel all day. And if I try to use a big shovel and force the situation, then that's when I get in trouble.
And that's why I've been pivoting to a lot of smaller tools in the yard because, yes, it's much easier on my back. So
yes, absolutely.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
So my question is, we have a lot of blackberry plant volunteers that are popping up. When would be a good time to move them to where we want to have them permanently?
Spring. You definitely want to move them in the spring.
I don't want to keep them till then. We had some earlier this year that I let over winter, and in spring I went to move them, but the root system, I guess because they can't, I don't know if blackberry roots go deep or wide, but these were really wide, and some of them were like 5 foot wide. I think I severed it, and when I transplanted them, they didn't transplant really well. I'm hoping they'll come back next spring.
Well, if you really,
that's a conundrum.
well, it is a conundrum, but if you feel like you really need to move them in the fall, just wait till the weather breaks.
Okay.
Early September, right after
Okay.
Labor Day, around then, so that, they're not under heat stress after you move them. It's not ideal, but they are tough. Again, I would rather see you wait till the spring comes and you see some nice, healthy new shoots come out and then transplant them. But if you have a reason why they can't stay where they are, which is, definitely a possibility, then just wait till the weather breaks. And they're pretty tough. They live in the wild. So yeah, they have the ability to survive. So that's, if you have
and
to,
one other thing I'm going to
go for it.
Okay. Yeah. What I'll probably do is the tinier ones that are just starting out, I'll leave in because they're not going to be that much of a problem. But some of them are getting bigger. And through my experience, they've been an issue when I've tried to transplant them. So I may, what the heck, give a shot and let's hope it works. And, I have enough of them popping up. I guess the bird droppings are just transplanting them everywhere.
Well, you know what, Bob?
I don't really know.
I would consider moving the little ones.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I would consider
I
moving.
could do that. That's, yeah.
Because the little ones are going to have a more contained root system rather than severing a bigger root system that's necessary to support a bigger plant.
Okay. That sounds good.
So
Good thing you said that because I would have gone the opposite way.
Yeah, I would definitely try to move the little ones, and then you can get a bigger root ball relative to the size of the plant.
Okay.
So I would try that.
And one other thing. Okay, thank you for that, and I will do that. I'm going to give that a shot. One other thing, we used to have I think it was a Norway maple, very broad leaf, that we had to cut down. It died, it got rotten. About 10 feet away from where that tree was, a new one has grown. And in the 2 years that I've let it grow, it's really getting gigantic. So we're going to leave it, though it's where our berry garden is, and in time it's probably going to shade that area. I like having the tree with all the trees we've cut down on our property because they got diseased. It was time to put some in. But on this tree, I've noticed, and there must be about, looking at it, about 15 limbs on it growing, branches, limbs, whatever. One of them has, the leaves don't look good. There's leaf spot, there's rust on it, it's brown, but only on the one branch. Should I cut that? If I do cut it, is now the time to cut it? This is only like a 2 or 3 year old tree, but it's a good 18 foot tall already.
Okay. I'm going to tell you something you're not going to like. Your other maple tree died. This one very likely is coming up from the roots of that one.
Right.
If it's not coming up from the roots, it's coming up from a seedling. And the diseases of maple trees can be easily transferred from root to root. So if it's right next to that, then the roots of the other tree are still there. And if it died and it was diseased, as you said, it could easily be transferred to the new one. And until you said that the one limb is dying, I was thinking, okay, well, you got a good tree.
The limb is fine. It just has the limb is fine. It just has a leaf or two on it that don't look really good.
Okay, well, keep a really close eye on it because the disease that comes to mind is a disease called maple wilt. And the way maple wilt works is it gets into the plumbing of the tree and then it proliferates and blocks the plumbing. You can actually remove a limb and take a penknife and scrape it, and you can see black streaking inside where the plumbing of the tree would be. And that black streaking prevents the water necessary to pass through. And so above the black streaking is where you have what's called flagging, where the leaves begin to wilt and not look so good. And it can happen one branch at a time. So it's happening, if it's happening to one branch and it's not looking good, and it's in a maple tree that either came from the roots or a seedling adjoining a tree, a maple tree that died, there's a tremendous possibility there that you're just prolonging the same situation. So, so if it were me, I would remove that limb, because if that disease spreads and gets into the trunk, that's when the whole tree dies. And
Right. Is it okay to take the limb off today even?
yeah, oh sure, you can take the limb off today.
Okay. All right.
And get rid of it. Don't like put it in the compost pile or save it or anything.
Yeah,
once the disease is in the tree, you can only slow it down. You can't, there's no cure. You can only slow the progression of it.
What else could be causing that? Anything simple it could be, rather than the most drastic of things, which is probably what it is? Could it be the dryness of the weather we had and then too much rain?
Well, I'll tell you, Bob, I have a hawthorn that's dying in my yard that's breaking my heart, and it's been dying one limb at a time. And if it was the drought or the weather, it would pretty much be affecting the whole tree, not just one branch at a time. So I think it's some sort of disease in my hawthorn. Because there's most of it's now dead, but there's like 2 or 3 branches that are perfectly bright green. It's so weird. So obviously it must have been a disease. It's taking out one branch at a time. I think it might be fireborne. I think that's what it is, but I'm not 100% sure. So I can't think of anything else in a maple that would do that. I don't think it's the weather. Could be insects sometimes. Borers can get into just about anything. So if a borer was in a particular limb, then that particular limb would die. So that's a possibility. So you can look for holes in the limb that are about the size of the lead of a pencil usually. And that could be something. And again, the treatment would still probably be the best option would be to remove the limb also. But I wouldn't suggest taking the tree down now if you like it, even though this is all, you know, we're guessing and probability, but there's no other benefit to taking down the tree until it's dead. But you might want to consider, if you like the tree in that spot, is planting another tree completely unrelated to a maple, because then you can get some size on the other tree before this one gives up the ghost.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Have a replacement.
Yes. So you get some size on it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I don't want to cut it down, though. That may be the direction we're going. Only, you know, it's not a big deal to do it because it didn't cost us anything. And, you know, it is near a berry garden, if you want, that we have growing. So yeah, eventually it's going to shade that area anyway. It just is something that, you know, popped up, and it's like, well, I really, really loved the maple that was up there. It was mushroom shaped. It just looked fantastic. A lot of shade, but whatever. And if this is the course we'll have to go, then that's what we're going to have to do. You know, I don't want to have a tree that's going to be weak and grow tall and then be a liability.
Well, keep an eye on it, see how it goes. See how it comes out in the spring. But the thing you want to really watch out for is if you see a branch here or there that the leaves are limp. It's called flagging. And if you see that, that is an early sign that you have that problem. So just keep an eye out for that.
Okay. Will do.
Okay. Anything else I can do for you?
Peggy.
All right. You have a great day.
No, we're good.
Okay. All right.
You too now.
All right. Bye-bye now. All right. Who are we going to next?
Mary Jane.
Okay. We're going to have a little chat with Mary Jane. Do we know where Mary Jane's calling from? Mary Jane, where are you?
Excuse me. I'm dealing with a cold.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Milltown.
Oh, Milltown. Well, good morning. I'm sorry you have a cold.
Good
Summer
morning.
colds are the worst because you really want winter colds. At
Yes.
least you can bundle up and take blankets and have chicken soup and hot chocolate and, you know, stay in bed. But in the summer, you want to be outside. You don't want to be doing that stuff.
I know exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So my voice may be cutting in and out, so I apologize. I have a lilac bush, and just noticed within the past couple weeks that it must have that bacterial blight disease. The leaves are just the leaves were totally all brown on them, getting brown spots. They were shriveling up. I mean, it affected the whole bush, and it bloomed so beautifully in the spring. I've went online and I saw a lot of different things to do. So yesterday I was just cutting off a lot of the branches, a lot of the leaves to try to just get rid of it. And hopefully I can let it, you know, survive it this way. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
When did this get planted?
Oh God, this is like 30 years old. It's been here forever.
And this is the first time you've seen a problem on it?
The first time. The only thing it ever gets is a little bit of powdery mildew in the summer. Other than that, it never had a problem, ever.
Well, that's unfortunate. Yeah, well, powdery mildew on lilac, some people call it fall color. So that's kind of standard operating procedure on lilacs.
Right, exactly.
But the disease, I would hesitate to recommend any kind of pesticide until I was absolutely sure. Can I get you to, for next week, take a bunch of pictures and send me the pictures? And then we can put them on the screen while we're talking. And then we could
Sure.
look
I
at
have
it
about
together.
3 or 4 pictures. I have about 3 or 4 pictures. Like I said, I've cut off most of the branches and the leaves at this point because what I was reading online was saying, you know, you just get rid of this because, I mean, it's the entire bush. It's the entire bush. And we're talking, you know, like a 10 by 10 by 10. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, that would be a great loss if you lose the things.
Yeah.
So let's and maybe it's just a leaf thing. If it's just a leaf thing, then you'll lose the leaves. You make sure, very important, that you rake up all the leaves and you don't let them just lay on the ground over the winter. You want to rake up as many as you can. You don't want to put them on the compost pile. You want to put them in a plastic bag and send them away with the trash because you don't want that to be an inoculant for the disease for next year. That's kind of important. And you may want to use a dormant oil to protect it over the winter so that anything that's on there gets smothered before the new growth comes out. These are all things I would recommend without actually knowing for certain what the disease is. None of that is going to hurt anything. None of that is using poisons. Dormant oil is an oil that basically, it's just an oil and it basically smothers things as opposed to, you know, affecting their nervous system or their digestive system or anything like that. So you just want to use a dormant oil, and then that would help to contain the disease so that it doesn't spread. So these are things that you can do that are not offensive in any way, that may give you some protection. But I really, before I would possibly recommend any kind of a pesticide, I would need to be certain. So I need to see it.
And is the dormant oil a spray?
Yeah. Yep. It's a spray. Usually it's the same thing as horticultural oil. Horticultural oil and dormant oil are the same thing, except dormant oil you spray while the plant is dormant, and it is a 2% solution. Horticultural oil you can use after the foliage is out. It's the same stuff, but it's a 1% solution, so only half is concentrated. But again,
do you think it was wise that I cut off? I'm sorry. Do you think it was wise that I cut off all the leaves?
If they had disease on them, probably not a bad idea. Again, you know, you want to make sure that it doesn't spread, but if it's on the whole bush, unless you remove all the leaves, you haven't really prevented the disease from being in the environment and spreading. Do you have other lilacs?
No, this is the only one.
This is the only one. Okay. Just as a precaution, and it is a precaution, I would suggest you plant another one someplace else just to be on the safe side, just in case, because I'm not sure what's killing this. And if it gets completely defoliated, it will definitely weaken the plant. It sounds like it's been there a long time and probably has a great root system, and that works in your favor. So, you know,
Well, it is completely defoliated at this point. It really
poor
is.
baby. But remember, it's August. It's August. Okay.
Right. That's my thought. That's my thought too.
You know, when the gypsy moth was out and it was defoliating all the oak trees, the problem with that was that it was defoliating them in the spring. And it's sort of like an investment, you know, the tree invests in all these new leaves, and it takes a lot of its stored energy to invest in producing a whole crop of leaves. So all the energy is stored in the root system. And then if in the spring, as soon as the leaves come out, they get eaten and disappear, well, they've already used up all their stored energy. That's why the gypsy moths were killing the oak trees, because they were defoliated in the spring and they would try to put out a second crop of leaves. And if they were defoliated too, or if that happened year after year, that's what killed the trees. But since yours were defoliated in the middle of August, they've had most of the year to replenish their reserves, and not likely to kill them in 1 year unless it's something that gets into the internal structure of the plant. If it's just on the leaves, then you're probably okay. But you want to make sure you get rid of the leaves. Don't leave them on the ground. And then send me, if you have any pictures, send them to me, and then use a dormant oil in the spring.
Okay. And where should I send the pictures to?
Do we have you can send them to my website, which is gardenwithpegi.com.
Okay. Okay. I will do that.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks so much, Peggy.
Okay.
I
Good
appreciate
luck.
it.
Okay. Are we
Thanks.
done?
I know.
Bye-bye now. Are we done a whole hour? All right. Well, now we're going to just extend this just a little bit because I didn't get to do any of my prepared things. So let's do, of all the ones that I have on here, let's do the Deodar cedar. Okay. All right. So that's little Kusa dogwood, and in the shopping cart with this Deodar cedar that I purchased. I just fell in love with it. I thought it was so cute. And so then we brought it home and we planted it. Now, the thing about Deodar cedars is they can live to be 1,000 years old. I don't think we're going to get to see that. So that's a very old tree. But it was growing weird. It didn't have a leader. And so it was growing sideways, and all the side branches were getting really lush. So you can see in the images there that I put a big stake in the ground and I tied a side branch up and made a leader. So now I have a leader, and it's more tree-like, but it's kind of goofy. It's pear-shaped. So I started pruning at the base, and was very careful to remove the branches that would allow other branches to camouflage the cuts and just bring it in on the bottom. So then I removed the stake, which was no small task because it really didn't want to come out. And you can see in the picture that it has a more realistic shape. It's still too big on the bottom, and where that arrow is pointing, there's a little bit of like a hole. There's no branches on that side, so I'm hoping it will fill in on that side. And next spring we're going to do a little bit more pruning on the bottom, and hopefully we can get it to be a really nice shape. But it's kind of a cool looking evergreen, and it's growing in a place that, as it gets some height, will help hide the big ugly building that we've talked about in the past. But one of the keys of pruning is that when you're done, it's not supposed to look like it's been pruned. So I think this looks pretty good. I mean, it doesn't look like I hacked it, and it was all done carefully with hand pruners. So that's generally the approach I like to recommend. So, all right, well, I got to do one of my prepared slideshows. I will be here next week. Same time, same place. Again, you can go to the YouTube site and you can view the archived shows, and you can send any kind of images you have to my website, which is gardenwithpegi.com, or originally it was peggygarden.com, and that works too. They both work. So send me any pictures or any written questions, and that way we can be prepared to answer them on the air next week. So I will be here with my husband. Thank you for all your efforts. And we will be here at the same time, same place. So until then, Have a good one. Bye-bye. Get one.